So you're thinking about investing in Atlanta real estate or just real estate in general, and you're wondering what that entails. How do you find, fund, fix, and flip real estate investment properties for a profit? And that's exactly what we're gonna cover in this video, and we're gonna get after it right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about eating, sleeping, working, playing, buying, selling, investing in real estate in Atlanta, well, subscribe below and ring the bell for notifications so you know when we release new content like this and stay up to date on the Atlanta market. My name's Denny. The team and I get calls each and every day from people just like you looking to make the move or invest in Atlanta, and we absolutely love it. So whether that's next week, next year, or anytime in between, call, text, email, schedule a Zoom, and we'd be happy to help you make your real estate dreams come true. Does that rhyme? I digress. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about investing in real estate in the Atlanta market specifically, and I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach, and probably should give you some background and context. First, my partner Peter Pasternak was the lead character on A&E's Flip This House for 3 seasons, 2 million viewers an episode, and we have done a ton of investing of all shapes and sizes, whether it be fix and flip, long-term rentals, short-term rentals, house hacking, everything you can think of. And one of my frustrations is that when other realtors do videos like this, or when they meet people who want to invest in real estate, they give them information or they teach them to do something or they help them find properties when most realtors have never been involved in an investment transaction. Now, when I say never been involved, I mean even as a realtor, they've never even worked with an investor. So that's one, very few, probably less than 5%, and I'm being generous, maybe 1% of realtors. What is a bigger pet peeve is that realtors who think that by working with investors, they know how to be an investor. Well, why don't you own any investment properties? I'm telling you that Peter and I coached and trained hundreds of agents, thousands of real estate investors. We developed coaching courses and seminars, and people paid thousands of dollars for the blueprint to become investors. We had a company called the Investors Blueprint. And one of the biggest things that frustrated me with that, and the reason we no longer do that, is because people would pay us thousands of dollars for information and then they would never go do it. We would do a weekend seminar. There'd be hundreds of people in the crowd, and I would ask everyone, if you've been thinking about investing in real estate for more than a year, raise your hand. And it's like everyone would raise their hands. And then more than 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, there would always be a half a dozen people in a room that size who'd been thinking about it for more than 10 years and had never done it, and were ultimately willing to invest in learning, invest in a course, invest in coaching, but then they would never go do. And so one of the things that I love about my role now is that I have done all of that investing and still do, and as a realtor I can actually help the investors who are taking action. Not having people pay me for information, but having people get paid commissions for helping someone develop an investment portfolio. So that's the perspective I bring, and that I want you to think about is like, when we get down this road, I'm gonna ask some questions that are gonna require you to do some soul searching, and then I'm gonna ask you that once you have all this together, that, or if you're ready, if you wanna do it, if you're ready to take action, well then reach out, call me. Let's have a phone call, shoot me an email, a text, let's get on a Zoom, and let's talk about a couple of things. And the first thing we're gonna talk about is what you want to accomplish. And what I mean by that is like, not this strategy, flipper, long-term buy and hold, any of that stuff. I mean, like, what are your goals? Personally, professionally, financially, like what are you trying to accomplish? Because that's gonna determine the strategy that we pursue. So that's really step one, and I'd love to talk through that with you. Are you looking to supplement your income? Are you looking to get out of corporate America? Or, you know, what do you want to do? My next question would be like, what are your current resources? What kind of cash or lack of? What kind of your credit score and or access to credit lines do you have? And then what kind of connections do you have? Like, what's your sphere of influence look like? And I want to talk about all these things because as I get through this, you're going to see that every single step of the way, there's 20 different directions we can go. And it's up to me to guide you in the direction that will ultimately get you where you want to be. See, if if you don't know where you want to go, anywhere will do. And we don't want you just taking left and right turns hoping that you'll get where you want to go. You won't, you'll get somewhere. But we got to punch the destination into the GPS in order to get to the right place. And so that's what this conversation will be like. But I want to give you some more insights into what maybe the process will be, because you don't just want to hop on a call and not know what to expect. I get it. Here's what it'll look like outside of your resources. It's like, how involved do you want to be in your real estate investment? Do you want to be completely passive? Do you want to just like, you don't want to know anything, you don't want to do anything, you've got money that you want to deploy and you want that money to bring back more money? That's one strategy, right? And then the other end of it is, I want to know everything. I want to do everything myself, and I want to make sure that I have control over, when I deploy capital, that I get a return on that and I get more back. And then there's a lot of in between all of those things, right? And so when we talk about, you know, the money that you, or resources or credit or things that you need and how involved you want to be, the next evolution of that is, what's your team look like? You're going to need a team of people in order to help you execute this strategy and accomplish your goals. Even if you're the one that wants to know it all and do it all, you can't do it all in a bubble, in a vacuum. There's going to be people around you that you need, for instance, even just like a closing attorney. And so they're not all created equal. You want one that works with investors and, you know, their fee structure is in alignment with that. Maybe they have some contracts that you're going to need. So that's just one example of who you might need. Maybe an inspector or appraiser, contractors. These are all people that are going to be on the team, right? So that's where we'll start. And then ultimately what we'll talk through, once we understand where you're at today, what you want to accomplish, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, will be these 4 things. And, you know, I like alliteration, so I use 4 F's. That's to find, fund, fix, and flip properties. Now, flip doesn't necessarily mean like most people think of, like flipping. It's just, what's your exit strategy? So if I wanted to break those down, what's it look like to find a deal, or how do you source deals? And I'm gonna give you 3 examples. One is that you can find them. And that would require that you learn a lot about marketing. We're talking about doing direct mail or door knocking or Facebook and social media ads, SEO, pay-per-click, websites, phone cold calling. These are all marketing methods that people use to find distressed sellers. Why do you want a distressed seller? Well, someone that is in distress. It could be deferred maintenance on the property. It could be a death in the family. Like if someone's parents die and they inherit a home, they live across the country and they don't have a use for that particular property, then they're going to try to sell it. It may or may not have been taken care of, and who knows, it's more of a distraction and a burden. Really, distress is always about a burden, right? Divorce, death, drugs, job displacement. I call them all the dreaded D's. I told you I liked alliteration. These are all things that cause distress, and a seller that's in distress, they're not looking for necessarily the highest price or the biggest headache. They want a fast, quick, easy exit. And so when you can find those people, then you can find off-market properties that you often get a very deep discount. And the discount is for the speed and efficiency and ease for that person. You're taking on their burden, their problems, and therefore that creates your opportunity. And so that's really how you find them yourself. Now, most people are never gonna have the time or energy or interest in trying to source deals themselves. And so that leads you to 2 other avenues. One is what they call wholesalers. Wholesalers specialize in doing what I just told you. They go out and they try to source deals through all of those things and other methods that I just explained. They put the homes under contract. You may have seen like the signs that say "We buy ugly houses." They don't actually buy the house and do the investing. They put it under contract and then they sell that contract to an investor. That is the elementary version of what a wholesaler is. Here's the challenge. Most wholesalers, because there is no licensing process, there is no educational requirement process, there is no industry oversight. It's like the wild, wild west. Very few of them are extremely good at sourcing off-market properties and communicating an actual deal, or even understanding what an actual deal is to an investor. See, most wholesalers, they watched a video, they took a class, they've never actually done any investing themselves. They don't have to go through the trouble of becoming a realtor, but they can kind of pretend like they're one. That's illegal, but they do anyway. And so they're just running around, one, trying to take advantage of people in distress and giving them ridiculously low offers. Most of the time, sellers think their home is worth more than it is, so they end up offering more than they actually should in many cases. So they put it under contract for an elevated price. They don't understand renovations. They don't understand anything about the construction side of it, but they just make up a number, or they watched a video or took a class or took a guess at what the renovation cost was going to be. And then they think they can use Zillow and Realtor to figure out what the after repaired value is going to be. And so they're making up all this stuff, and then they throw it to an investor, and that investor probably has never done anything either. Maybe they're someone like you. You were told you needed to go meet wholesalers. So you went and met some wholesalers. They sent you some deals and you're like, he says it's good or she says it's good, so it must be good. It's probably not. And so the reason I'm not advocating for you to go build a network of wholesalers is because most of them are idiots. Most of them are unethical. Most of them are, it's either unethical or ignorant because they don't know what they're doing, but they're just trying to find someone that'll give them a house for sale and someone who's dumb enough to pay more than they put it under contract. So if they put it under contract for $200 and you're going to buy it for $250, they make $50,000. So that's really like the wild, wild west. It's really hard to find a good, honest, effective, educated, professional wholesaler. They do exist. I know some of them personally, and they know who they are if they ever watch this. And there are some companies that actually hire and train licensed realtors to become, and all they do is wholesale business. They don't ever put anything on the MLS, and they are just sourcing deals for qualified investors. And so there are good ones, but that's few and far in between. Here's the other problem. If most of the deals are garbage, you're gonna sit around and you're gonna have to analyze deal after deal after deal after deal after deal, and it's all gonna be garbage and garbage. You gotta sift through all this garbage, and you don't want to have to do that. And so that leads me to the last one, which is a realtor. Now and they're not perfect either. I talked about that earlier. The challenge is that most of them have never been involved in an investment transaction, or most of them haven't actually been an investor. And so all that creates a lot of problems. But if you can find that unicorn realtor who has personal experience in investing, they know all of the ins and outs of it, and they can effectively source off-market and on-market properties for you, then you're onto something. But you're gonna have to find deals. The key is to all of these, whether it's yourself, wholesaler, or a realtor you're working with, you need to know how to analyze the deal. You need to be able to know how to figure out if it's a good deal or not, because the realtor is gonna get a commission, the wholesaler is gonna make a spread, or you're gonna spend money on marketing. The last thing you wanna do is buy a property that ultimately loses your money. And so that's one of the things that scares most people, and that's one of the areas that I would love to be a resource and help you. The second thing is, once you find whether it's a realtor, wholesaler, or yourself, you find a great deal, you've analyzed it, it looks good. Now, how are you gonna fund it? And so funding is vast. I mean, most people think, oh, I have to have cash. Cash would be great, but you don't have to have cash. That is one. The next is credit. Now, there's lots of different forms of credit, but if you have good credit, you could potentially go to an institutional investor like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, the FHA, conventional loans. There are investor loans. You don't have to, I'm gonna talk about private and hard money next, but you don't have to do that. There are institutional, normal, conventional loans where for 10, 15, 20% down, the bank will actually loan you the money to purchase and renovate a property that you can then sell for a profit or keep in your portfolio. I've done it, I've seen it, and I've helped clients do it. You can actually do that for your own owner-occupied home. Even if you don't want to be an investor, you can use a 3.5% down loan, and you can buy a house for $300,000 and put $200,000 in it, be in it for $500,000, move into it, love it, enjoy it, and the day you move in, have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 of equity in your property. And we've helped clients do that. So there are institutional options, but then you have what they call hard money. Hard money is normally like it almost is like an institution. It's a company that lends money, and the rates are generally higher. You're gonna pay anywhere from 2 to 3, maybe even 4 points on the front end. So if you borrow $100,000, you might pay $3,000 up front, and then 12 to 15% on the back end. So if you're holding that $100,000 for a year at 12%, that's gonna cost you another $12,000. So $15,000 to borrow that $100,000 for a year. Denny, that's expensive. In Atlanta, you could buy a house for $60,000, put $40,000 in it, be it for $100, and sell it for $2. So you're in it for $115, sell for $2. The realtor and the transaction cost might cost 10%, carrying costs and all that kind of stuff. So 200 becomes 180, 180 minus 115. You made $65,000, right? So it's worth it if the deal were supported. Where you get into trouble is if the $40,000 rehab becomes a $70,000 rehab, and the holding time, instead of a year, it takes you a year and a half. And then instead of 200, it sells for 180. And after the lower sales price, the increased renovation cost, the cost of financing, the holding it too long, and all that things mean you lose. And so as you can see, these first two steps are extremely important. First, finding a good deal and being able to analyze it, most of your profit is made on the purchase. And so you need someone to help guide you through that. The second, when you're funding it, private money is, unlike hard money, it's usually a friend or family member, and the rates are oftentimes much better. I have lots of private money lenders who over time, because of my experience and my knowledge and my results, they will lend me money with a phone call. I called a friend last year, an opportunity literally fell in my lap from another agent that didn't know what to do with a problem, and I solved their problem. And in that, I needed to purchase a house like 2 days after I found out about it, and I called a friend. He wired almost, it was $370,000 overnight with basically a phone call, and I asked. Now that doesn't happen overnight. I had developed that relationship, but private money lenders, underwriting is simple. They don't care about your credit. By the way, hard money and private money lenders, they don't care about your credit. They don't care about anything but the deal. The deal is what determines whether or not they make the loan. And so some hard money lenders, your credit impacts your rate, but private money is like a friend, right? Wired the money, it was like $370,000, and after we put the house back on the market, we were in and out in about 4 months and made $100,000. And we split it, literally. He would have loaned me the money at 10%. I was moving so quickly, I just knew it was a deal, and I was like, I don't want anyone to have to think about this. I want to go. We both were equally yoked in terms of our opportunity in that investment. Usually private money, you might get 0 points on the front end, 8, 9, 10% on the back end. Good money for them and for your investor, whether it's your grandmother, your neighbor, or a friend, and they get a safe investment that's collateralized by the property. If you default, they get the property. Just like an institutional investor or hard money investor, your friend or family or private money lender will have their loan secured by property itself. Now, where can you find money? Whether your own or help a private money, a friend or family member find money. And there's 3 places that most people don't know to look. For this particular private money lender, my friend, what he did, he has millions of dollars in a brokerage account, like at UBS or JP Morgan or Chase or wherever his brokerage account is. His is at UBS, I think. He didn't have to take $370,000 out of his portfolio, sell the stocks or sell the bonds or anything like that. That stayed in the market invested. He didn't want to create a taxable event, but he was able to, with a phone call, borrow the $370,000 using his portfolio as collateral. So he's getting a loan based on his portfolio as a collateral, and that was only at 2.3%. And then he partnered with me, and even if he would have loaned it to me at 8 or 9 or 10%, he would have made the spread between the two. So that's one way that most people don't think of. It's a portfolio loan. The other one is your retirement, your IRA, 401k. Like, you can borrow out of those at 2, 3, 4%, depending on what the current rate is, and you can invest that in real estate. Or if your grandmother or your mother or another family member or friend, if they have a large retirement account that they can borrow from a low interest, then they will loan it to you at a higher interest rate, and they make the spread. And then the last but not least, which is kind of similar, and a lot of people don't know this, is cash value life insurance. You can actually borrow money from a cash value life insurance policy, again, at a much lower rate than is normally available to the public, and that can be used to invest in real estate, or your private money lender can borrow it and make the spread the difference. So those are all different funding types. The next is called the fix part of it. Now, the fixed part is the construction part. Now, if there's ever another part that terrifies people and that has a lot of risk, it's the construction part. There's no way around it, right? It is kind of an unnerving thing. It is a scary thing. If you don't know anything about construction, finding a good contractor that will give you an accurate quote and then do the job well, and then not rake you over the coals if there's any kind of a surprise or what they call a change order. You can get multiple quotes from multiple contractors, you get an estimate, but how are you to know what needs to be done? Like, it's a daunting task that maybe you could do 10 different things to the home, but really you can only afford 5. So which 5 things are going to get the biggest return on investment? Is it the flooring? Is it the paint? Is it the exterior? Is it the roof? Is it the kitchen? Is it the bathroom? Like, where are you going to make that money? And what gives you the most return on investment for every dollar you put into renovations? How do you find, again, quality contractors that are going to do the work, do it right, do it on time, take, accountability for their own part in this process? So this can be a really daunting process. And again, if you're here in Atlanta, if you're anywhere else, like, you're just going to have to network, and you're going to have to try and try and try. And when you find a good contractor, hold on to them, right? Hold on tight. If you are gonna have a general contractor, they are going to manage all the subcontractors and the timelines and the changes and all that headache. If you're gonna do that yourself, the do-it-yourself, manage the subcontractors, you bring in the flooring person, bring in the painting person, bring in the cabinet person, bring in the counter person, bring in the roofer. Like, you're gonna save some money, but it's also gonna take you more time, or you're just gonna do all the renovations yourself. That is a true do-it-yourself. Remember I said, how involved do you wanna be? Like, what do you want to do? You either have time or money. And so if you have a lot of time, you do the work to save money. If you have a lot of money, you hire someone to do the work because you don't have the time, but you do have the capital and the resources. And again, you should still always get a profit or a return on that. So those are all the fix-it challenges. But if you're here in Atlanta, well, fortunately for you, after all the investing in real estate as an investor and as an agent that I've done, I have a long Rolodex of really great contractors that do both ground up, new construction, multi-million-dollar custom home builds to bathroom remodels and everything in between, or a flooring person or a paint person. Even if you're not an investor, I tell all my clients, hey, if you have a question about real estate in terms of a vendor or something you need, you call me and I'll tell you the ones, the handyman that shows up on time and does good work and, you know, charges reasonable rates and takes care of you, because they know that if they don't take care of you, I'm not sending them another referral. And so fortunately, been in this market as long as I have, like, I have those resources that I can share with you and would love to. You got to find them, you got to fund them, you got to fix them. And then the flip part is the exit strategy. Based on your goals, based on your resources, based on where you want to be, where you want to go, like, what's your exit strategy? Is it buy it, fix it, flip it, put the cash in your pocket? Is it long-term rental where you're moving in a solid tenant that's going to be there for years? Is it a short-term rental where, you know, people can book on Airbnb or VRBO and it's more of an active business? Usually that's higher rent rates, but it's more effort, you know? So again, we're back to the time, energy, effort, risk, reward. The cheaper the homes in the lower income or depressed neighborhoods, there's more risk because those people default more. And I'm not making a judgment as a person. They're people, we're all valuable, but they have displayed a history of not paying their bills. Ideally, you're going to take more risk, so you need a higher return. Or do you want your investment properties to be in an area where there's affluence, where there's great schools, where people make more money, where people historically, you have to vet every tenant, but where they pay their bills on time, every time, and there's lower risk, you can accept tighter margins. And so we work through that in your risk tolerance, your risk preference. So you have flipping, you have long-term holds, you have short-term holds. House hacking, maybe you're gonna move in yourself and you're gonna short-term rental the basement, or maybe you're gonna move in and you're gonna rent out rooms. Like, we can work through that. Or the BRRRR strategy is one of my favorites. If you aren't familiar, you know, check out biggerpockets.com, Bigger Pocket Podcast. There's tons of investors, but you can get lost in the sea of dummies over there too that don't know what they're talking about. But there are some really great people there, and the people at Bigger Pockets that run it, they are great people as well. But in the forums and in the comments, you know, it's the wild, wild west. But Bigger Pockets is a great resource, but they coined the BRRRR: buy, renovate, rent out, refinance, and repeat. So it is a strategy, a method in which you can recycle. Let's say you were to acquire a little bit of capital and you recycle that same capital over and over and over and over and over, so that you can grow your portfolio quickly, one property at a time. That's kind of the BRRRR strategy. So what's your exit strategy, and what's the backup exit strategy, and what's the backup to the backup to the backup exit strategy? Those are all the things we're going to be working through. So I think that's about all you can handle for today. It's all I can handle. Each one of these, I will be continuing to create more content around each one of these strategies, each one of these concepts. This was meant to be a high level, big picture. If you are ready to get started, if you want to have that conversation, if you want to walk through some of these concepts, please do call, text, email, schedule a Zoom. I'd love to help you with your investment needs. Or if you just don't want to necessarily invest, but you would like to create equity in your own home through one of these renovation programs, we can help you with that. As always, if you haven't already, subscribe below, ring the bell for notifications so we can be a resource. You get notified when we release content like this. And until we see you in person, we'll see you on the next episode.